Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is the final video in our Deep Blue Rediscovered series. It's Deep Blue against Garry Kasparov, Game 6 of the 1997 match. Indeed, this is one of the most well-known and one of the most dramatic games of all time, I think. Yasser Seirawan described it: the Garry Kasparov versus Deep Blue match had all the drama of a great epic. Going into the last game with the match tied, the expectation and excitement had reached fever pitch. My audience had just begun to warm their seats when the game was over. In just over 1 hour, the match was over and we were all left gasping for answers. So let's have a look how it went. So e4, and Garry played c6, but after d4 he didn't play his anti-computer approach. He played the move d5, heading for a mainline Caro-Kann. D takes c4, knight takes c4, many possibilities. Knight f6 is very popular nowadays. Korchnoi's old line, which has been incredibly successful for black. Bishop f5, the classical, and also knight d7, which was Karpov's favourite, but is generally thought to be the most dodgy, really, of the three lines. Quite interesting, actually. In the book, e takes d5 actually had a weight of 11, e5 had a weight of 10, knight d2 had a weight of 12, and knight c3 had a weight of 11. Of course, those two are about the same, really, but somehow Deep Blue ended up playing knight c3. This was probably because it was actually its book. So d takes e4, knight takes e4, knight d7. And knight g5, this was the move that Deep Blue wanted to play anyway. Actually, quite interesting to see what Deep Blue was looking at after knight f6. Queen d3 was one brief choice in its PV, which I've never seen before. And another one in its PV, which I've never seen before, was knight c3. So a little bit weird. However, knight d7, and then knight g5. And I think I wrote down here that Deep Blue's main line was h6, knight e6, queen a5 check, bishop d2, queen b6, which I've actually had once against Hikaru, but it's incredibly risky, really. Very, very interesting. But knight gf6 was the main line, and that was played by Garry. Bishop d3, a weight of 32 in the book, so played immediately rather. E6, queen b6 was one line that Deep Blue looked at as well. But e6, Garry was playing quite fast, so it's really, Deep Blue was thinking about a lot of things quite briefly, basically. That's why g6 was another line that Deep Blue was looking at. But e6 played, knight f3, weight of 32, and h6. Yeah, bishop d6 had the highest weight of 30 in its book. And then this was the PV that was looking at bishop takes e4, not queen takes e4, queen c7, bishop d2, knight f6, bishop d3, bishop d7 was Deep Blue's expectation when it was waiting for Garry's seventh move. But yeah, Garry, as we all know, played the move h6, and what did Deep Blue do? Well, I mean, Deep Blue had looked at this line several times in its analysis, principal variations, and it was definitely going for knight e4. Actually, there was even this bizarre line that was in Deep Blue's PV, g5. Yes, no, it's absolutely true, but it gets crazier still. Castles f5, bishop d3, and g4. I haven't written up the analysis there, but I even let my engines look at this, but they weren't impressed. So this was very, very strange, but always hard to know with these variations that Deep Blue is outputting how long it actually spent looking at them. It might just be some random 2 or 3 second variation. So yeah, I mean, there's been enormous amounts of controversy about this line. Feng-hsiung, in his book Behind Deep Blue, gives the following explanation. Several of the top commercial chess programs at the time were explicitly prohibited in their opening books from playing this knight's sacrifice. So apparently lots of the commercial chess programmers knew that their programs could not play the sacrificial line. There were some rumours during the match that Garry thought Deep Blue was using the opening book of one of the commercial chess programs, so it was conceivable that he was expecting Deep Blue to retreat its knight with just an equal position. In the unlikely event that Deep Blue did play the knight sacrifice, there was this nice article written by Gennady Timoshenko, one of Garry's former seconds, in the March 1997 issue of the Computer Journal, International Computer Journal. Timoshenko played exactly the same line against none other than Fritz, the chess program distributed by Garry's computer chess consultant Frederick Friedel. Timoshenko gave the verdict: after the knight sacrifice, black has enough possibilities for defence. I have desperately tried to get hold of that article, but I haven't been able to. Somehow, the custody of these articles has changed, and it looks like it was a Dutch company. It's been taken over by another company, and I just can't seem to get an answer to any of my requests, and the website to actually pay for it and buy it is broken. But pretty intriguing, eh? And Yasser said if we'd given freedom to Deep Blue to choose, it would never have played it, and indeed I see that in the PVs. But Garry forgot that we could change the machine every day, as the contract said, so the machine took on e6 immediately, and I remember Garry's face. He was completely shocked. After knight takes e6, white is winning in all variations. Now we really know. At that time, we kind of knew. Michael was saying that that knight takes e6 was inputted on that day, the day before the match. But Joel Benjamin said that he entered knight takes e6 into Deep Blue's opening book a month or so before the match. I believe Joel, really. I mean, he was very intimately involved with the engine, and for a year or more actually. Yeah, so I'd expect that this is correct, and that Michael's recollection is not correct. But yeah, intriguing. Yeah. In the BBC Sounds video, Frederick Friedel seems to confirm what's said in Behind Deep Blue. He said Garry asked us to collect all the opening books of all the commercial programs. In none of these books did a computer sacrifice the knight. So yeah, that seems like it was just a gamble by Garry to do this, and a gamble that failed. Of course, Deep Blue still had to play it right, but the Deep Blue guys were supremely confident that with an initiative, it was going to be, very, very dangerous. And well, we've seen how aggressively Deep Blue could play. Garry played the slightly unusual move Queen e7. F takes e6 is supposed to be the best. Check, King e7. You go Bishop f4 just to stop the Queen moving to c7. So Queen a5, c3, and King d8. Castles, Bishop e7. When I'm playing it on modern engine with modern engines, white's winning pretty much every game. Oh, I see that Stockfish managed to draw against Leela a couple of times, but Leela's winning like winning 75% basically of them. So maybe Stockfish can hold it, but it's very, very tricky. So actually, Queen e7. It wasn't just knight takes e6 that was inputted. There was obviously a few more moves in there, because it seems like the book was pretty quick, and of course there's always the extended book as well. So funnily enough, f takes e6, bishop g6, king e7, castles b5. That was Deep Blue's PV, and after rook e1, knight d5. Queen e2, was even looking at playing king d6 in this position, you know, to go round to c7 there. Yeah, pretty scary stuff. So, but after queen e7, yeah, castles was played. I've got that this is still in the book. F takes e6, bishop g6 check. Yes, indeed, Joe Home picked up the wrong bishop on move 10, so tried to play bishop c1 to g6, but that didn't matter. King d8 and bishop f4. And now Gary's novelty now was the move b5. Yeah, Yasser says, unfortunately for the commentators, we were trying to justify Kasparov's opening choice and explain that the novel move 11b5 was prepared by Garry and that all of his head shaking was his attempt for an Oscar for best drama. Yeah, the purpose of the text move is to secure the d5 square for a black knight where it can't be dislodged by c4. A noble aim, except that it simply does not work. There's no question that black faces difficulties, but the computer's approach to winning the game is quite different from a human's. So yeah, Yasser makes a number of interesting ideas, but I think he's wrong there. I don't think he's right. But what he was saying was that b5 makes it very easy for the engine, because you're just creating a target, and an engine knows to attack targets. That's so what Yasser wanted to do, and yeah, you know, it's pretty crazy, but it's quite nice. He wanted to do nothing and try and get the engine itself to bail black out. So what he was saying was you should play the move a5, and after rook e1 you should play the move a4, and the idea is that you play the move b5, and you try and just tempt white to take that pawn back on e6, you know, get material back, and try and you know, get white that way to make life easier for you. Yeah, I don't think that really would have worked, to be honest. I think, you know, deep blue was too strong for that. But it's quite a you know, an off the wall suggestion from Yasser, and yeah, typically original from him. You know, it's yeah, as he says, b5, the real bad news about the text, b5 is that it tells deep blue exactly what to do, open up the queen side. Yeah, quite possible, but still, I don't think that deep blue would have had too much problem with this a5 to a4 move. I think deep blue was strong enough for that. But anyway, Garry played b5, and yeah, things just went from bad to worse here, really. So a4 was played. Yeah, just going to activate the white rook as well. Lilo liked bishop g3 instead, but absolutely nothing wrong with that. Bishop b7, rook e1. Just yeah, actually deep blue is just playing very well here. Deep blue is taking all of its time. Bishop g3, not worrying at all. You know, that's why I sort of feel that deep blue would have had no problem with any other line, to be honest. Yeah, it's just so difficult. You know, the bishop stopping the king from getting developed. e6 is weaker. We've always got ideas like this, and we've got some sort of plan at some stage of playing c4 and breaking it all open. So yeah, king c8 was played by Garry. My engines are trying all sorts of things, but you know, it's just a massive score for white. Deep blue plays it very simply: a b5, cb5, queen d3. You're just going to take the pawn and go c4. Yeah, chess is simple sometimes. Rook c1 was what Stockfish is looking for, just looking to play c4 with a great deal of violence. But queen d3 is very nice. Bishop c6. Yeah, queen b4. Rook takes c6, bishop e7 was Yasser's suggestion. Last gasp, and yeah, does look a little bit better somehow. But what did Stockfish want to play? c3 and queen c2 simply. And then you're just going to kick it away, rook e1, and yeah, you've just got complete control. There's just very little that that black can do here. Yeah, you know, in a human game you can mess it up, but not something calculating 330 million positions per second. So bishop c6 was played, and now bishop f5 from Deep Blue, which is quite a nice move. It's cashing in on the material now. I mean, obviously you can't allow white to take on e6, so e takes f5. So we grab the queen, and then the key point is that c4 happens, breaking everything up. Here Garry was so shocked, so disgusted and disappointed with himself that he resigned. That's a little bit excessive, but yeah, it really was going badly for him. If you go b takes c4, I go queen c4, knight b4. Got to try and hold this guy. Then I go rook e1, hitting him. And if rook e8, well, I can just take and go queen b4, which is great. I mean, the queen's going to come into to d6 later. Knight 5 b6 is another possibility, but then we go queen f5 here. And after b takes c4, knight e5, and again, everything's collapsing. Something like king b7, this was the best line the engines could find. And queen e6, we take the bishop, and then we just start rounding up all the pawns. Really, yeah, hugely dramatic, hugely desperately disappointing for Garry, of course, and in a way a little bit of a travesty really for the match, because the match had been, you know, really very tight, very thrilling. I think that you know, my personal feeling about the match was that Garry probably was not. You know, Garry and Deep Blue were probably evenly matched with, you know, rather different distribution of strengths, but fairly evenly matched. But yeah, this was kind of, it was pretty clear, I think, as well, that if you'd given the Deep Blue team another month and a bit to work on the engine, then it would have been stronger than Garry, and would have kept on going stronger, you know. But I think in this particular match, you know, Deep Blue was still making tactical mistakes, as we saw in a number of games. So, you know, Garry's disadvantage on the tactical area was not as great as you might have thought. And yeah, I mean, there was you know, some positions, you know, unbalanced positions with material disparity. Deep Blue found a little bit difficult, and also its handling of the opening was a little bit up and down, really. You know, just well, for example, game 4 where Garry was black. Yeah, you know, game 5 even, you know, Garry was managing to get an advantage, possibly in actual fact a little bit due to yeah, the human bias in the opening book that wasn't quite letting Deep Blue play as it really wanted to. Although, yeah, of course, in other occasions like this game, that human bias in the opening book turned out just brilliantly. But I mean, in general, I think, you know, the match was a beautifully even battle, really. But this was a bit sad way to end. But of course, you know, it does reflect, I think, the biggest advantage that the engine that Deep Blue had over Garry, and that's simply stamina. You know, in the 1996 match, Garry was very, very tired, but somehow won the last 2 games. Somehow, yeah, Deep Blue really played unexpectedly badly in those 2 games. But here, yeah, you know, Deep Blue played very, very strongly still for the last 2 games, and Garry just couldn't cope with the tension. I mean, Garry just didn't have the energy to continue, which is actually a trend that you saw in a lot of the human versus computer matchups that followed. You know, the Kramnik matchups. You know, just the human starts off well, but just ends up running out of steam, and then all the accidents happen. You know, so that was that. But as I said, you know, I think Deep Blue was really on the cusp of getting stronger than any human here, and probably much stronger. And just a shame, really, that the match ended, you know, quite acrimoniously, and Deep Blue and IBM decided that they weren't interested in continuing, because I think given Feng-hsiung and Murray Campbell and Joe Hone another few months to work on Deep Blue, we could have had. Well, I don't know. We could have had something Alpha Zero like, you know, only you know, sort of you know, 20 years earlier or 15 years earlier somehow. You know, really think they could have done something quite special there, but wasn't to be, and that was all still to come. But still, a quite amazing match, and you know, I do feel that Garry can be very proud of himself as well for what he did. I do think he played exceptionally well, and you know, conditions human against computer, you know, pretty tricky for the human, and I think he did a great job as well. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed that summary. I've had a lovely time going through it. Really got obsessed with the whole thing, and hope I've been able to to give you some new insights in the ways the game's developed. Also, with a modern perspective, and I hope that's made these games come alive for you again. Now it's back to the grind, really. I've got plenty more articles planned, some more stuff on openings and stuff like that. So do stay tuned. Subscribe to the channel, like the videos, tell your friends. Help me get to 5,000 subscribers. That would be absolutely amazing. And otherwise, thanks very much for all your involvement, all the comments, and hope to see you for the next videos. Thanks for watching.